Hello there. This video is a follow-up to our podcast episode on website navigation. You can find that at noscript.show/21, the numbers 2 and 1. Here, we're looking at some examples and their code, and the links for these can be found at noscript.show/learn/13. And again, the numbers 1, 3. Joined as always by David Walmsley. Hello, David.
Hello. Oh, right. So this one, we're concentrating on the accessibility. On the audio, we were talking about everything really to do with navigation, and we kind of concluded that being the NoScript show, we try and avoid hide and show with JavaScript as much as possible. But I thought for this, I should at least show some examples of accessible ones. And of course, these are by other people because I can't write JavaScript. So I'll just go through a few examples. So the first one, which we mentioned in the audio, was from the Web Accessibility Initiative. They've got some great examples if anyone does need what they call flyout menus with the JavaScript that you can use for these. And there are, as you say, there's all these different variations, like some where you can get to the submenu via the little icon on the side. And as you can see on this, it works if you hover to open up the side menu.
So it's a link as well as a sort of hover state on
the
little icon. Yeah. Okay.
So they've got that. I mean, if you're tabbing along, then you'll tab to each, and then the tab to that one will drop it. So screen readers and people using keyboards will treat this differently. So this is a really useful resource. But what I will say about this is I probably wouldn't use it because I think I'm quite a fan of the idea of progressive enhancement. And if you disable JavaScript or it doesn't load for people, none of these work.
Right.
So it's accessible.
So basically, all of those, they've gone from the world if you don't have JavaScript. Yep.
Exactly. So they're worth checking out as examples if that's what you need. But that's the downside as far as because also the other downside of it is that there is an example if you just want to copy and paste of CSS that makes this good for mobile. So it will just squeeze. I won't squeeze it in, but as you can imagine, when they squeeze in, so space and bare will just get squashed in. So it's just using Flexbox. So there isn't really an attractive design element to that, but a useful resource. The other thing, and he's brilliant, I've mentioned him before on the show, Manuel Matuzović.
It's easy for you to say.
It's not, I'm sure I said it wrong, but he's wonderful. And I mean, the way he presents stuff, he's done some great CSS day talks and stuff. He's got a book called Accessibility Cookbook, which is really easy to consume. You can just take different bits out of it on this one. But in a way, and I'll go to his examples. Now, you can actually steal his examples without getting the book. I've been reading through the book, which is brilliant. But his examples, let me just see if I can find them here, are all available on his accessibility-cookbook.com site, where all the code is. And he's got a few examples. He builds up on it. So there's this one where you've got all the code that you need, including the JavaScript and CSS, for an example, which you can find on CodePen, which I'll show you now. Now, this looks a bit ugly. You would need to do more with it. But basically, when you are, here we are, we've got normal menu. And when we, click on there, we get jump with CSS. We've got an icon, a hamburger icon, and then our menu here. And pretty straightforward JavaScript. And of course, this is much better. I mean, it's a little bit janky, the animation on this, but it kind of works. Again, it's the progressive enhancement on this side. That means that I probably wouldn't use it. I know he's a big fan of progressive enhancement, but again, it's accessible. But if you are worried about JavaScript not loading or loading slowly, then that's maybe not the option to go with for that. So that's that one. Now, now we move into Sara Soueidan's, if I'm saying her name right as well, I don't know, a practical accessibility course. I mean, she is brilliant, and she is so meticulous over everything. So of course hers have been progressively enhanced, and she goes through the whole process of that. So I can just show you a few examples of her. So she starts off where we look at there's her course. I mean, she is brilliant. She's a bit of a party pooper for those people who just love to do everything with CSS, because she points out how things might not be accessible if you don't add in JavaScript under certain circumstances. So there's this first. I mean, it's clickable, not hoverable, because she's not a fan of that. And it's a fairly I'm not going to go into the details here, but the JavaScript gets a little bit more because she's progressively enhanced it. So if I were to, I don't know if I'll do it anyway. I don't know if this will work well because I know that CodePen relies
We can't
on
see
JavaScript.
whatever you're doing with that browser extension, but I'm guessing you're disabling JavaScript.
Oh, yes, right. You can't see that. You are right. I am doing that. And if I just refresh on this, yeah, CodePen requires JavaScript, but I think it'll work anyway. Yes, it does. So we can't see our code now, but what we can see is the state when JavaScript fails.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So what she does is that she builds progressively. So as she will, instead of using the button as the drop down for something, she will use a span and then use the JavaScript to add in and change that role to a button. So
interesting. Yeah. Okay.
But of course, it makes, and I'm now, which you can't see, I'm now going to turn off my disabling of JavaScript on this. So it's a better solution, but then, of course, everything gets a little bit more complex with this. And let me move on to our next example where she has the normal menu over here and then a drop down on the navigation for when we get to mobile sizes.
Gosh, that's really neat.
It is really neat. But again, even when you're as meticulous as she is about getting absolutely everything right and progressively enhance it, there are still some like decisions you make. But she's done two here. She's done this, what is called as a design pattern, the draw, where the overlay comes over the top. And she's changing things to dialogue role. And when you do that, you are trapped. So she calls this trapped. And I don't know if I could just show it on there. If I just move around here, you are trapped in that dialogue.
So
you
have to click engage. There's no sort of escape functionality once you're in the menu.
So you need to have a close here to be able to close this. So there is another alternative that she's made on this one. We're not trapped, where if I just go into this, again, it goes into the role of dialogue. But what happens on this one is you get to the last focusable item, it will take you out automatically.
Okay, so there's a bit of swings and roundabouts there. I can see why that's good, but also why that's bad. So you have to engage it every time you go through it. So if you miss a link, you're got to start all over again, right?
Okay. Yeah, and I think this is the thing. I mean, what she will say on that, it will depend on your pattern and your research on this. But it just shows you different, as we were talking about on the first thing, when you start to get into this, you can never quite get it right for everybody, can you? No. Because somebody's going to be expecting one set of behavior and they won't know as they go to different sites, which has made me. So, I mean, obviously her course is absolutely brilliant. She's really meticulous, but I mean, here's the thing. I am not even, I'm quite happy to do a little bit of JavaScript if I understand it, but I am not going through, this
rigmarole. Yeah. Okay.
Look at all
That's
that.
a lot. That is a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, to change. So I will avoid it. But these are great examples, and maybe I'll use them one day on this. I will just, because of the fact that she puts things into a dialogue role, I will show something which might shame me later. But I did experiment some years back with my own sort of way of imitating mega menu, and I'll just
I don't know. I don't think I clicked this right.
No, you didn't. I just added it at the end because I had it because maybe I'll get into this at some point. But what I've done here is just done a regular menu, but I've created this mega menu with the dialogue, because you can have show modal, which is what it's designed for, and you can have just show where it will stick to the element that is near there, and actually you can still move around things here. So it actually works. Now, I don't know. This is something where you might want to get a friend of yours, Joe Dawson, to look at it and say, how terrible is this? I know I need to fix some things, but it does actually work. I mean, it is enclosed because it's dialogue, but I've got a close so I can close it. So,
okay, maybe we need to get Joe on this show, and we can line up all of the previous websites that you've ever made, and
it'd be shame. Well, I know there are things wrong with this, but it's an interesting thing because I did this a couple of years ago because I was excited by the fact that we now had dialogue which we could use, a little bit how we're excited about details and summary. And I thought, can I use them for a menu? I don't know. I could not find a single person until last month. I have not seen a single person use it for a menu.
And then you found one. Rejoice.
Yes, I found someone. But they made actually, I can show you on this. Well, I won't show you on. well, I will actually. Let me just do this. I'm going to disable the JavaScript, because what they didn't do, which at least I did do on this, is if I disable the JavaScript, I put in a link now, which goes to a sitemap. So you actually get
okay,
even,
that's neat.
yeah.
That sitemap is beautiful, by the way. It is a menu, isn't it? It is a kind of mega menu right there. The way you've laid it out with columns. Yeah, interesting.
You might not want to get stuck down.
No, there's a lot there.
Some big posts.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah.
So it might need improving for accessibility if your JavaScript breaks. So honestly, I don't know. It was just a little idea that I had that I wasn't going to show, but I might work on it and see if there's something that can be done with it, as if you do feel that you ever need it, if this can be, because it's so easy to do. It's just a few lines of JavaScript to get things to open, because you're relying on HTML to do most of the work.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I like that. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, and the CSS is easy because you could just put it in a grid and it automatically moves. So yeah, I was quite sort of pleased with it, but very nervous to show it to anyone because
there it is, and it's gone.
Yeah, but very easy if you put them in a grid to make it mobile responsive. So yeah, really, really simple, as I like it. Okay, so talking of simple, should we go on to just talk about what we've used on this side and what I'll be trying to get away with?
Well, so can I just say, just for the sake of clarity, what you have used? This is not me. This is you. You've done all this hard work, so don't give me the credit for that. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you can avoid the shame as well. Like,
I don't know about that. Yeah.
Okay, so there are some things, even when we're keeping it simple with HTML, CSS, and Aria, there are some things that we probably need to. So I've used on the intrinsic frameworks of the links there on our show notes there, and I put our own site in here just so I can show stuff on here. So I mean, this is pretty straightforward on this. So I'm just using Flex, as most people do, because its sizes according to the item, the menu item. I mean, they're all pretty similar here, but obviously Grid does it the other ways. Puts boxes around it. So this is a pretty simple thing. I haven't put all the CSS code that's going into there, but obviously at a breakpoint, it just goes down here. And if you're sticking to something like 5 here, this will go down to, before it breaks and wraps again, it will go down to a screen of, I think 375 pixels, maybe 350
pretty
or something.
Small.
So so most mobiles are going to get this. So without having to bring in a hamburger, we've got that. And as we showed before, what we have on this is on the more, it takes you to where we've got more.
To the navigation in the footer.
And with some animation that goes on that. So that's it. And here's a couple of things that probably you'll get different information on if you're into accessibility. So I've put the HTML code up here. Now, once we put nav, once we use the nav, which we should to put our URL, and that's an important thing as well. If you're showing and hiding, never hide the whole nav, else otherwise it disappears from the table of contents. So that's another thing you could make a mistake with, but we're not doing that. But even so, even though we've got nav, we might have more than one nav on a site. So we can use Aria label to say main. So it knows the main navigation. I haven't written navigation because screen readers will announce that it's navigation, so they'll know navigation main. So I put an Aria label of main on there. Another thing to make things better all the time is to use Aria current for the users who are without visual clues on what to look. So when you're on that particular page, on that A tag that you're using there, you'll put Aria current equals page for home on that one. That's a kind of good thing to do. I mean, what I've done here, as I'm showing you on our example, I mean, the names are different on here, but the link to the footer, another key thing to do is if you're an icon, which I'm just using that HTML unit over here, put that to hidden true if you want that as an indicator, because you don't want that to be read out. Screen reader would read that out as downward triangle. Most of them would anyway. And then put an Aria label, which explains to them, because it's not so obvious visually for them to see, I put an Aria label in there saying that we're navigating to links in the footer.
Links in the footer,
And likewise, when you're meeting at that other end, there's actually, you're not far away from the get back to the top as well. So hopefully it's good. I mean, I've made some quick marks that, nav is a landmark. So that's a way of being able to tell screen readers the structure. There's 8 of them that are commonly known, like a banner, which tells them it's a header, a nav within that tells them what the navs are. So they can move around from it. But the interesting thing is, and this is why I've got, I'll just skip ahead here, option 2, is because some people will say, yes, nav is accessible because it gives them this landmark so they know where they are. But because they're not often well laid out on most pages, people still use the majority. I think it's closer to 70% of screen reader users will go to headers. Headings, rather.
Right. Headings. Yeah.
Yes. And so another way of doing it is to, in your nav, you put Aria labeled by, give that an ID, and then connect that up to a visually hidden title, which say main navigation on there. So some people still
that makes sense.
will do that. Now, the experts that I've been following haven't been doing that with their header text. They've been using what I've used in the first one, which is just use the Aria label. Now, mostly they will say this is better. Aria labeled by is better because of translation issues, because of the way that screen readers will find things. Aria label is your last resort. If the HTML can say it, that's best. If Aria label by is your next go-to, and then Aria label last. And the reason why I've gone to Aria label, and why I think they have too, is because on the main menu, you're probably likely to know in the header that that is the main navigation. But also then you fall foul of the HTML, which is usually in your main, should come first. You put a header before your header 1, if you like.
It's fascinating, like these overlapping and slightly conflicting ways of achieving it. And it sounds like there's no perfect way to implement it. There's just sort of slightly better given the proclivities of the website you're working on. That is really interesting. I did not know what you've just explained. Gosh.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I got different experts and they told me, oh, you should do this. And then I thought, hang on, I've got a header 2 now above my header 1. What's going on? And generally, I don't think it matters. It doesn't spoil your DOM order in any way. It's only that kind of rule. It's probably not the biggest thing. But of course, if you are checking some of these things, if you're using checkers, it's really annoying to have this flagged up that you've got your headers in the wrong order, even though it's visually hidden.
Right.
Sorry, so I went off a little bit on this one. One thing to just mention as well, because if you are not up to date, which I wasn't, you'll hear some people say that you need to put the role of list in a nav for Safari users, because Safari decided not to feature not a bug, but they thought that lists were overused in design. So they decided not to announce them to screen readers. So if you're so they discount your role of lists, so an unordered or ordered list. So discounted them. They've changed this only quite recently. So if it's a list within a nav, they will read out how many items are in that.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
So we don't need to do that, but you might see it otherwise. So I made a point about that. What else? Oh, there was a slight subnote on this. And I don't know, I've gone my own route with this one. I don't know how people, I see people done this differently. But you get an issue like this on this page. And it's not so much on this one. But I want this to have some CSS that tells me that this is the current section that I'm in my main menu. But I'm actually in an article within the component section.
You kind of want a breadcrumbs style thing, don't you? But not
probably. Yeah. But I thought there's not many levels here. So what I've done, and I won't open up the inspector, but basically what I've done, where we've got that, I put Aria, not page, but true, to say that's where you are, and an Aria label saying currently viewing a single post on the components. And that's the same on the noscript show as well. So if you go into our chats and you go into an individual chat, it'll tell you that it's a post on the chats. So that was my workaround. I'm just throwing it out there.
Sorry to get into the technical weeds of this. 11T, the CMS management tool, that enables you to do that, does it? It can figure out that this is a page under the tree, if you like, the parent of components, and then it will build that Aria label for you.
Yeah, I had to put that sort of as a bit of programming in there to make sure that it did it when it knows which one it's on. So yeah,
that's a neat idea though. I like it. That's going the extra mile, it feels.
Yeah, I did have a look at an Andy Bell's site, and I noticed when he had a sort of similar situation, it was still the CSS styling was active there, but it was not. Anyway, I just thought this was a bit of extra information.
Yeah.
Maybe I've made it more busy for screen readers. I don't know, but in
Mm.
rather than have breadcrumbs where they're only going one level deep, I'm not sure if it's that helpful.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's
Wow.
just my
Gosh.
thought. Yeah, I
Fascinating.
know
Yeah.
you get into a lot on this. There's not. Did I miss anything on there? I don't think I did. I
Didn't
put
cover the
some.
CSS yet. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, there's not much to say. I mean, I can't cover it because it's in the context of the header, but we're using Flex with FlexRack to make them that pretty good for headers in most of the time. I've just put in some code here, which is showing how I'm styling the underline when we're under that section. So it's visually underlined when we're under this.
Yep.
So you know where you are. And then that's done with the CSS that's over here by picking out the href and then and I put it for now, I've had to do it for true as well as page. So,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
so it's now
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
href, Aria current page and true as well. And then we've used these new properties in CSS where we can actually decide the thickness of these ones and offset the underlining as well.
Mhm.
To be honest, I might change this. This is a bit off what we were talking about because there's a really cool with view transitions. If you use a border and you use view transitions, it creates that lovely effect where it feels like the border is moving along to your next.
Oh, okay. Almost like
next.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. Like a little animation of something sliding to the next one, kind of thing.
Yeah, and it doesn't do it on this, so I might change this to a border anyway.
You're
But,
really in the weeds.
yeah, but it's a cool thing because it used to take so much
Yeah.
programming to create
Oh.
this sort of feeling like things are anyway.
Yeah.
Starting a second target. Where have I put this down on there? Oh, this is just the script I've put in because, as you know, when we hover down to in that thing where we hovered, and
yeah, you click on the link and it creates the border around it.
Yeah,
it's unfocused.
So I put the styling in there that was used on that one. So we're using target. So that border is only showing to highlight.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, on the mobile, it's fine because you're down to one column and everybody knows where you've navigated to. If you're going to the footer and you've got other things in there, it was just a way of highlighting with a bit of animation. But of course, with animation, I've also wrapped it around no preference here.
Prefers reduced amount, reduced.
Yeah. So if you don't like motion, it disappears, and that's really it. Apart from the fact that I didn't put where I got it from. Yeah, there's a really great tool for animation, which is animista.net.
animista.net.
Yes.
Okay.
Which you can sort of, just get your CSS that you want from that. What else did I want to mention there? Just notes. Flex, I've already said that contains the unit. Current page we're hiding. Global. Oh, yes, a good point, actually. Something I failed to on the site I just showed you is that generally, globally, you might want to add to your A tags an increase amount of padding by default because there's such thing as target size, which is defined for accessibility so you can hit the thing properly.
Yep.
When you're on touch mobiles, where it's supposed to be, I don't know why in pixels, but 24 pixels, you're supposed to have around your clickable link, else otherwise it starts to fail under accessibility.
Yeah, you have to be very precise and have a perfectly pointy finger.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you haven't got that thing, and the Substitute Tide picks that up for me, although he didn't spot it on my other site where I know I didn't have enough, so not always accurate. But I think that's it. Have I covered enough coding stuff?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just to say that obviously we're showing this on the screen, but it is available to you. noscript.show /learn/13, the numerals 1-3, noscript.show /learn/13. Yeah, I think that's great. And obviously we had a companion podcast episode, which you can find at noscript.show /21. Which obviously explains all of the bits and pieces that we've been going through and why David felt these bits of navigation were important to mention. I think that's it. Have we captured what you wanted to say?
Yeah, that was great. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, in which case I will see you next time. Thank you. So that was all about website navigation. Hope that you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. Take it easy.